Hi there, my name is Kevin Deegan-Krause, and I helped co-found the Ferndale Science Fiction Book Club, a group of people who meet every month on the second Wednesday to talk about science fiction, to read our favorite books, and to explore them with other people. The library this summer is engaged in a nationwide reading program called the Universe of Stories for kids, for young adults, and for adults. And the Universe of Stories was really inspired by the fact that this summer we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Apollo moon landing, Apollo 11. It's really interesting when we talk in our group about how much interplay there is between science and science fiction, between what actually happens and the stories that we read about. In many cases, the things that go on in the world, like the Apollo 11 landing and the kinds of computer technology that we've got, these inspire the stories that we read. But it's also true that in many cases, it's the science fiction that inspires the things that go on in the real world. There's an author named Thomas Disch who's written a wonderful book called The Dreams Our Stuff is Made Of. And he says that when we read science fiction, we are inspired to produce, we are inspired to create. The science fiction of Jules Verne inspired people to explore the world. His From Earth to the Moon gave us a blueprint for a moonshot. His used a cannon instead of a rocket, which would have turned the astronauts into jelly. We figured it out later, but like Jules Verne, the moonshots that happened in the 1960s, 100 years after the book was written, actually began from Central Florida. Later on, the communicators in the Star Trek movies and films inspired flip phones and other kinds of computer technology. And the books of Neal Stephenson, among others, inspired the way we think about the World Wide Web. So that Neal Stephenson's books contained virtual Earths in computer software that actually were the inspiration for Google Earth and other kinds of virtual computer software that people use every day. So when we read science fiction, we're not only reading stories that are inspired by the science that happens in our day, we are actually reading stories that inspire that science and help people to move further. And it's not just a question of actual gadgets and physical technology, because one of the things that science fiction does really well is to think about the society in which we live. Not just the gadgets that dominate the society, but the way we organize ourselves, our social inequality, our responses to disaster and catastrophe, and also our attempts to make life better for everybody. And so when we gather as a science fiction book club, we think about these bigger questions. We look at how the books that we're reading actually can help us think about our own lives and our own ways of being in the world so that we can make it just a little bit better.